You're looking for a practice kit that feels solid enough to keep you motivated, that won't take over your living room, and that actually lets you hear what you're playing without spending a small fortune on a full studio setup. That hesitation wondering whether you're buying a piece of equipment that will just sit in a corner gathering dust, or whether you'll end up compromising on sound because you chose something too cheap shows up in almost every drummer's first search. I've spent the last few weeks checking out how the Roland TD313 V-drums actually fits into a typical home practice environment, and I want to walk through what I found before you decide if it's worth a spot in your space. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest question people have with electronic kits is whether they can actually replace a real drum set for everyday use. The TD313 isn't trying to be a full-blown studio rig. It's a compact 3 Series kit designed for apartments, dorm rooms, or any space where you need to keep the volume in check. The pads are noticeably smaller than what you'd see on a stage-size kit, which means you won't have to shuffle furniture around to make room for a sprawling snare and tom layout. In practice, that translates to being able to set it up in a bedroom corner, hit a couple of fills, and then fold it back into its rack without leaving a dent in the wall. One of the practical strengths that shows up once you actually play a few songs is the V31 sound module. It's the brain of the kit, loaded with a multi-sampled library that was built in partnership with DrumWorks software. What that means in plain language is the snare, kick and cymbals all sound more like real acoustic drums than many older electronic kits you might have tried. When I ran a basic rock groove and then swapped to a jazz swing, the change in tonal character was immediate. You can hear the difference in the snare's snap, and the ride cymbals wash without having to dig through a mountain of preset menus. The large color display makes selecting those sounds fairly painless. You scroll through categories with a single knob, and the layout is intuitive enough that you don't need a manual open on your lap while you're trying to keep a tempo. Now, let's talk about the coach mode that Roland built into the V31. For someone who's still learning or who wants to keep track of timing, the module can light up the pad that you're supposed to hit next, essentially turning the kit into a built-in metronome with visual cues. I tried it while learning a simple funk pattern, and the visual prompts helped me lock into the groove faster than using a metronome alone. It's a feature that feels like a small but meaningful productivity boost, especially if you're the type who likes to practice alone and need that extra nudge to stay on beat. On the downside, the compact size of the pads does come with a trade-off in feel. If you're used to a full-size acoustic kit, the pad surface on the snare and toms feels a bit tighter, and the rebound is shorter. That's not a deal-breaker for most hobbyists, but it can be noticeable if you rely heavily on fast, intricate roll techniques. You can mitigate this by adjusting the pad sensitivity in the module, but the physical dimensions won't change. Another practical consideration is the built-in wireless adapter. While it's convenient to connect to Roland's cloud library and download expansion packs, the Wi-Fi connection can be spotty in older apartments with thick walls. In my tests, the kit still functioned fine for playing, but I had to move a bit closer to the router to download a new kit pack without interruptions. Who should seriously consider the TD313? If you're a beginner or intermediate drummer who lives in a small space, need a quiet practice solution, and want a sound palette that can cover rock, pop, jazz, and a few electronic styles without buying additional software, this kit checks the boxes. It also makes sense for a home recording enthusiast who wants to lay down drum tracks directly into a DAW. The integration with DW SoundWorks means you can pull the kit's output into your computer via USB and treat it like a virtual instrument, which saves you from needing an external audio interface just for drum sounds. On the flip side, if you're a professional gigging drummer who needs a full-size kit for stage performance, or if you're a seasoned player whose playing style relies on nuanced dynamic control and the tactile feel of large acoustic drums, you'll probably feel limited by the pad size and the more limited range of articulation. Also, if you're looking for a budget-only entry point and don't care about the extra software membership or the sleek display, you might find a more basic 2 Series kit from a different brand at a lower price point. Value for money is where the TD313 finds its